Yes, over there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, that I'll let me call the select board to order for town of Damascotta, or a joint meeting, joint budget workshop meeting with the budget committee. We have all members of the board here. Dick, do you want to call you guys? You have a quorum? You call your help in? So you've got one,
Even on
2, 3,
board?
4, right? Yeah, you just got Mary. And you need 5, right? All right.
Haven, can you help confirm how many, there's 4 guests and or participants in the meeting, so there might be a couple other budget committee members.
Yeah. And then,
Harold and AI note taker.
Oh,
gotcha, okay. All right.
Note taker.
Say the AI note taker, AI overlord.
What's this? Is it?
So, Andy, we have one change to the agenda tonight for the budget workshop, correct? We're gonna,
yeah, we've
Bring
only
this
got
up.
about 50 minutes or so. Michael's unable to make the next meeting, and so I offered to put him today, and then we can just shift the administration being the other big one, unless you want to shift the
yeah,
other ones.
let's go, let's get through, we don't want Michael waiting,
You
so.
forfeit 10% of your
Wow.
budget though.
Get Michael in for planning and development.
I don't know what's gonna happen here.
You never know. I believe everybody's page 15 in your budget books for planning and development. And yeah, let you guys get at it. Anything exciting going on in planning and development? Nope, nothing. Going down, moving along.
While in here, so the one difference between the department request and manager proposal was for software that we have been using in Newcastle, and it works very well. And I just was talking with the code enforcement officer, and he's all for it. And now Andy is for it. It's a matter of, I think, of when, if, hopefully. Essentially, it is an online portal for the public to be able to look at their all information is pulled from the assessing data. So it comes from 3.0, and it basically shows you your parcel, it shows who owns it, it shows what zone you're in, setbacks from shoreline zoning. And my hope is that when we do start with this, that we can use it. It could be the foundation of what we build, all the other information that we want to have when we do planning and long range planning. There's just information that we don't have, like we don't know where all the dwelling units are in town. So we don't really know where to, how to plan for all of that. And plus, anything else that you can imagine using paper maps is, so anyways, that is what let's see what line.
That's on the 1338.
1338.
Yeah.
Page 16.
What was the difference between your budget request and what Andy came up with?
That was, I think it was the 7 or 8,000.
I know, but what's it for?
It was for the software.
Oh,
GIS
okay,
software.
all right.
It
Was that,
This is 7,000.
It's bolded in there. See the
GIS.
oh, down there.
So you're using that already in Newcastle, is that it?
Yeah, so if you want to go and take a look at it there, they had it already kind of rolled out before I got there, which is what half the cost. The department request difference, that $7,000 cost was, it's like $3,000 or $4,000 a year just to maintain it, and then there is of $3,000-4,000 to set it up. It also, some of that might depend on how messy the existing data is that we've got, but so half of that is a setup, and then half of it would be going forward. This also ties in with the assessing part of the data, because every year we're supposed to update our tax maps to show when there's lots are split or when transfers and all of that. And so just managing all of that is kind of part of this.
Would it help the assessors, you know, we have to do this reassessment of
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that Andy and I had spoken about was, I guess there's software that for the reval, that one applicant petitioner, I don't know what you call them, mentioned that they wanted us to switch, they wanted the town to switch to different assessing software.
Yeah.
And if that happens, there's a version of this that kind of, I guess, plays nice with that software.
Okay.
This software works with Trio. You basically have to export it. Someone here, which I'd be happy to do, export stuff in Trio and upload it to the software. But depending on how things shake out with the assessing software, one program might make more sense than the other.
Yeah, it was definitely not in my mind, I think it's an important tool to have, whether you're an applicant trying to fill out a building permit or the information today should be readily available to them. I mean, a lot of folks will come here and just ask the questions, look at the big tax maps, go to the counter and say, can you print me the assessment card? Because it'll have more information on that than we have on the commitment book. And so it's all a little fragmented and like it really, in a perfect world, should just be available to people today. So having all of that be able to communicate with the database and not have to do the exports is something I think is worthy of looking into with the proposals we've got for the reval. And that's, we know, is going to be, you know, once accepted, it'll be a couple of years out before they really in earnest get into it.
Sure.
You know, so I think in part, just looking at the overall budget, that's $7,000. So maybe we just don't do it this year. Maybe we can look at it next year and learn more about how we can integrate it with all of that. But definitely support, I think, is something we should consider doing. Standing up is just maybe not for next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's generally with everything that I've got that I'm trying to move towards. It's like just systematizing and organizing, making sure that we've got the records where they're supposed to be, and that when residents or applicants come, they kind of either know what we're asking them or have access to the information that we
So would
need.
this eliminate the actual like physical cards that we use now?
I mean, I don't think they still print those cards, but it's all based on digital stuff. So not really.
Okay.
It might present it in a slightly more digestible manner. Some of the information that's on there.
So, but when you update like the record, then do you have to manually update it in this software as well? Or do they just integrate?
They would talk to each other.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not making up separate assessing data for the planning department versus the assessing department. That's all. They collect kind of some weird data, like apparently they can't tell you exactly how, like the square footage of a building.
Yeah.
But which would be really nice to have, but they collect the data that serves them in determining value, but so we just work off of that.
One of the big changes or proposals in this budget relative to last year was the additional staff capacity with the comprehensive plan being passed by the town. The next step is to get this thing implemented and start working towards those policy goals and strategies that were identified in there. Acknowledging Michael's part-time, there's no other staff that we have that can run with and support the committee to be formed to implement all of the priorities in there. And so Michael's applied for, we've talked briefly in other meetings about applying for an Island Fellows position, which would give us access to basically a full-time person for about, was it $14,500 for year one? Be 30 to 32 hours a week on average. And it's a relatively small lift on the back end to report out what they're doing. And so that's been applied for, and we're hopeful that we might become a host site. There's only 5 that'll be identified for the year. Always try to get next year, but then we'd be a year behind and trying to figure out how to, with the capacity we have. And so I think even if we don't get the fellow, I think it's important to still keep that in there if we're going to try and get this stood up and give an honest effort to implement this right from the get-go. I don't see how we put enough staff effort in there with the current staffing we have.
So I'm not understanding, are we wanting to approve this
Yeah, I don't understand.
software or we're not?
So just presenting it as, I think I think, you know, looking at the budget, I think you should wait on the GIS implementation. Michael's request just shows that that's what the number would be if we did go forward with for next year.
When I put that together, it was, I didn't know about all the other software that was gonna be rolling out and some other integration. It just was basically going off of, we've got this in Damascus, I know it works, something that's good to have. And so I went and ran down those numbers. So if it doesn't happen this year, it's not like the planning department's gonna seize up. And in light of the other, you know, this other information that Andy's got, I think that we don't budget for this year, next year maybe. Yeah.
I'm familiar with the GIS. I'm just feeling this is not the year. I mean, yeah, it is the year. Last year was the year,
Right,
but right now,
yeah.
it's even got Dick McLean looking at ways to say no, and Josh looking at me and said, "Yeah, that's what."
The more we hang out together, the more we agree, and that's really great.
Yeah. Are you GIS experienced, trained yourself?
Yeah, I lightly, I won't
Okay.
pretend to be doing stuff that like Rumline and some of the other engineers do, but I can go in there and I can get my way around.
Okay.
And what does GIS stand for?
It's
Geos-
geographic information
Information
systems.
system.
Okay,
It's basically computer mapping.
okay.
Can I ask another question? Just the only other question I have on the contracted services. It's new this year, and it's $4,200 in its line. I don't know what line it is. It's down below 96. It's just called contracted services. It's on page 19.
Yeah, planning
Yeah.
consultant under contracted services.
Yeah.
Contracted services.
You see that?
Yeah, 4,200, 42.
Yeah, can you just discuss that? Because there's one for 4,200 and then there's 5,000. And we're only looking for 4,200, but can you just discuss what those are?
Yeah, so this is, I think the other
What's
more
the
broad
5,000?
thing that I wanted to, I don't know exactly how to frame this for the budget committee, for the select board, for the residents.
Yeah.
With the comp plan, there's a lot of stuff in there. And there's a lot of stuff that I know just would be good for the community to take on.
Okay,
If we want to make, you know, if we really want to take the housing seriously.
okay.
And so I just had thrown out here, in conversations with Andy about 3 possible projects that we might want to take on. One, ordinance updates. This is something that I spent a lot of time on, site plan review, that is. It's probably time that could be spent better if the ordinances were a bit more clear in what they were asking applicants for and what the standards are.
Mhm.
So instead of me spending 10 hours to review a site plan application, it's like I can spend 2 hours, but we need to first fix the site plan ordinance. So there's that.
How do we do that? How do we fix the site plan ordinance?
Rewrite it or significant.
Streamline it.
Yes, I
Okay.
think. I think the one thing that frustrates people more than when you tell them what you can and can't do according to the ordinance is when they're like, I don't understand why I can't do it. Right? If you're like, well, you can't do it because 5 stories not allowed, we don't have a fire truck that's tall enough. Fine. If you say, I don't know, just the ordinance says no.
Yeah. So would we hire somebody to do it? Is that what you're suggesting? With
Yeah,
contracted
that
services
or,
base?
it's stuff that I can do, but I can't do both.
Sure,
The Lincoln County Planning Commission is working with Booth Bay right now to rewrite their ordinances for exactly the same reason, make
Yeah.
it more understandable. And that's a resource too.
Absolutely.
The that's one ordinance in the comp plan, right? out of the gate in like phase one, if you will, of the implementation strategy, I think there was probably 5 other ordinances at least that were being considered and said we should look at. And so this isn't hopefully all 50 hours spent on the one, hopefully. But with a combination of Michael's ability and capacity to work on any one of those or in part on all of them, acknowledging that we still need someone. I mean, the majority of his hours from now until the next planning board meeting are probably going to be on site plan review. So if we're not wanting to delay some of that stuff, I said we need to bring in. I think, that's probably your best bang for your buck is either MCOG or Lincoln County Regional Planning.
Yeah.
Both of them have kind of a cap on how many hours or what their availability is for us specifically. So this would allow us to contract with any one of them to help move this stuff along. And those other 2 projects there, one, we didn't know what the price would be to do a parking and transportation analysis, but we all know the challenges seasonally with parking, transportation in and around town and through the area is challenging. And there's ideas in the comp plan to help address some of that, but we didn't even know what the price would be to put in there, but wanted to flag that as like, it's talked about, it's mentioned, we should probably not lose sight of that.
Yeah.
And then the housing market study, I think, there's some ways I think we could probably incorporate the cost of that and some of the grant money we're receiving, one of which will be presented to us today at the next meeting.
Yeah.
That I think we can still get it done. It just wouldn't have to be borne on the operating budget.
Yeah, you are aware that the Regional Planning Commission just recently completed a significant housing study. So there is a lot of information out that we've got already.
Yeah, I think Michael's idea was to try to dive a little deeper.
A little more granular. Yeah,
Yeah,
because what they provided is great, but there's a difference between, what someone will pay or for rent or to purchase, near the downtown of Damascotta and Newcastle versus, in the Mills or further down Biskie Road. And I want to understand, well, what is it? A, what are all the costs? And B, what are the rents? And can it be justified so that kind of armed when,
so trying to get more geographically specific
yeah,
than the countywide.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, one of our challenges, and we're not alone, but like when you have a community that's a single census tract, the data available through the census, as broad as that might be in of itself, is even more broad when you look at one single census tract. You just don't have enough granularity within that, and we don't, even with that study, truly understand the desires of people specifically to hear, what they are saying they can afford, what the actual rent is right now of rentals here in town. So I think that's all. And the Genesis Fund is another resource that we've talked to briefly about the possibility of assisting with that type of study. And they do that for communities that are ready to jump into housing solutions. So the pieces are out there, just a matter of, I think that's one that we just note that that's an estimated cost of doing that study. Not an actual quote by anybody, but one that I think we can afford to still do, but just in a different budget area.
Yeah, and that is, in my head, that line item is kind of we haven't quite gotten to the implementation of the comp plan, which in my head is kind of like, here's what to go work on. And before we start kind of unpacking that, the comp plan, to make sure that there's at least some funding available in the next fiscal year to start making progress on something. Hopefully, we already have it, and we know it's in there, but we haven't really started doing implementation committee or how is that going to look yet. So it's kind of a,
Yeah, so between the island follow and this sort of thing.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the biggest single problem with comp plans is they are rarely implemented.
That is the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's the whole point. We are going to do.
that's the thing, and I've been with comp plan people where everybody keeps saying, and we're not gonna let this book just be put on the shelf.
Yes.
And the book winds up being put on the shelf.
Yeah, and I have already started saying that, but I hope that I don't fall into the same trap that everybody else does and just gets on the shelf.
Well,
So,
we're not gonna let you.
no, it is on the computer right now, so.
Well, then I think this process is step 2
Yes.
from the comp plan is somehow allocating the funds to make the comp plan start to happen.
Yeah, and that's-
Because we can, if we want, we can sit and we can kill it.
right.
We can put it on the shelf.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation that I want to have. And I'm new to, I've been on the private side before, so municipal budgeting is kind of a new beast for me. But rather than just, there are things in there, and I think some of the conversations I've had with Andy is, I think we'd like to kind of put forward, like, this is what the comp plan says to do. Here's what it's gonna cost to actually get there, so that we can either figure out where we need to get that money from or how to do it. And if there's not the money for it, fine, like that's a decision that the community can make, but rather than kind of, I guess, throwing up a number and then letting it just get kind of shot down because of however people justify shooting down numbers, it's like, well, what do we want to work towards? What can we afford? And then be trying to find some way to marry the two. Because this is, like I said, this is a new process for me, so
You're doing fine.
thank you. I'm hoping that the next time around, this time next year, once we get the comp plan unpacked, we start having some conversations, and I'll have already gone through this now. This will be my second time, although my head was still spinning last year this time. So that we can have maybe a more informed conversation of this direction, that direction, this budget, that budget. So
Yeah, part of the fellows' work will be to utilize the budget to buy into some strategic planning software. So you take that comp plan with its 40 or 60 pages of ideas, policy, strategy, things to implement the goals and desires of the community. And yes, you can manage it in a spreadsheet and take the time to create, manually create dashboards and try and find a way to present it publicly. And so the software, which is almost half the price of what I thought it was when I put the numbers in there for this budget year, would afford us both on the back end, a way to manage all of that and then work as the board and then with the departments to try and stand up the ways that we measure progress on any of those goals. But also it provides a public facing dashboard that's built in. And so, next year's budget process, I'm hoping we can lean into a little more what Michael's saying and lean in more to like, what are we trying to accomplish? And if we agree on those goals, and if the board's setting a 3-year, say, strategic vision for what we're working towards, so the departments know what they're budgeting for every year when they're doing it. I think sometimes we get stuck in this, well, if we haven't heard anything otherwise, we're going to stick to the status quo, or things that the department heads themselves might say, oh, I think it's a good idea to do this. But trying to shift that a little bit to, ahead of them creating the budget, they know what they're building it for. And so by bringing that capacity on, the hope is that next budget cycle, we can kind of start shifting in that way, start thinking about staff time as a limited resource, not just the dollars that we can afford to raise. And because with all of those goals in that comp plan, someone's got to get it done.
Mhm.
And, the staff, already, there's some available time, but not the kind that you need to address all of those priorities. And so I think it's being smart with allocating the time as a limited resource. So we know when we have to bring in Lincoln County or lean on another partner in the community to help carry out any economic development strategy or a natural resource strategy. And there's, again, a list of potential partners in there, but someone's got to cultivate that and carry it out. So,
It's a very specific number, 5665. So how did you learn about this particular software?
so last year's
Mhm.
budget,
Which
so,
line?
he's looking at line 1338 on page 16.
Yes.
Thank you.
There's strategic planning software is at 5,665. That's last year I had looked at 3 or 4 companies, and one of them offered a much lower price than the rest. That was this one that the value I'm showing here. This is for a company called ClearGov. The product is called ClearPlan. They've got other modules if in the future we ever wanted to add on to that, not proposing we add into their budget process, or they have a digital budget book, which is appealing. But when I was in Vinyl Haven, I think it was like 10 or so grand a year. And I'm like, we're not there. But I think for the purpose of implementing the strategic plan, then creating a board's 3-year strategic plan, right? Because that comp plan is still a visionary kind of piece, and right, it's just setting a tone for the select board and committees to lean into and set their goals and priorities that will be hopefully funded. And so that'll help us keep all of that in check, in line, and then present that to the public to show how we're doing to meet that. So it doesn't just sit by. But I thought that was a pretty low cost, and knowing it can be expanded in the future if there was ever a desire to do that, where we can actually show people this priority is estimated to cost $20,000, and here's how we're going to show you that we've met and implemented this and how successful we were, and they can kind of see how the budget and the numbers correlate to those goals. So it'll take some time to get there, but I think if we can get a fellow site and someone here to work with us for 2 years on that, I think we can really stand something up that'll help hopefully engage the public and give us better direction and guidance throughout the year. But that would be the cost to get it started. That would be the annual maintenance fee. The intent would be with this year's budget, being able to buy into it for this year. So the setup cost would be this year's budget.
And how does that affect the program that Michael wants to have?
That's completely separate in terms of like how it would function. I mean, what the GIS program is a mapping tool. So actual like parcel map, take our parcel maps and our tax maps and put them into a digital database. And when you would, in theory, in perfect world, when you click on that parcel in the database, it pops up and all the, we can put as much or as little information in there as we want associated with a parcel. You could put all of your assessing database information that's tagged with that parcel, square foot of a house, number of bathrooms and bedrooms. I mean, you could put all of the data that's publicly available in Trio with a parcel on that map feature when you click on it. You can look at it quickly.
Any past permits.
Past permit. I mean, there's so much you can do with that GIS software. We could also map out, where fire calls are going to, or where, road projects are for the upcoming year or the next 3 years. Things we could do now as well if you want to use, Google Maps or not map, Google Maps, Google Earth. There's some other things.
There's free. Running the analysis is kind of a whole separate thing, but the GIS for me, I think, is starting to just get the catalog and library of data that the town has or should have. But one thing that would be an obvious benefit to applicants and residents, like, you buy a piece of property, you go and click on it, you're like, when was the last time when was the septic put in? Where's my septic application go? And find, 96 was put in. Okay, great. And you can see that, and that's good. We're trying to do that analog now, get all that stuff in the right files, but you can go and see when was this bill, what was approved. That'd be
good.
Yeah, I think very useful. So many people I know like to know. Harder to track, but yeah. So, but yeah, that would be separate from the strategic planning software.
On page 20, there's some proposed revenues that correlate with this department. We have the permitting fees. We've got the reimbursement from Newcastle for the shared position that Michael's in. So just trying to chart out what that looks like. So when you're looking at
So just looking at the permitting fees, because I had circled it, so it's 20,000. So year to date, we're only at 5.6. Actual 24 was 11,000. 23 was 11, and then 14. Is 20,000 a stretch, or is it
25,000 was stretched for this year?
Yeah.
That was picking up on the previous year's estimate and not realizing we were likely to fall way short. So 20,000, I don't think is a super stretch, depending on how we adjust the fee structure is something that I brought up in a previous meeting, but we haven't circled back on the fee structure for the town. And so I think there's things that, part of, talking with Michael is to try and get a good estimate on how long it takes us to review an application generally, or specifically for shoreline zone or floodplain, and to kind of be able to say like, well, here's the fee, but it's taking us, an hour on average to review these types, but we're only charging people, say, $25. And it's like, well, that's not correlating with the time it actually takes us the cost for us to do that. And so I think reviewing the fee schedule and adjusting rates, as it's been quite a while, is something that would get us closer to that 20,000 on all of those different types of permitting fees.
okay?
So in the business licensing, so we're going to be going forward with
That's something that's gonna happen.
That's a question something to discuss right now.
Okay.
In trying to find ways to offset costs, running government, I mean, one of the ways to do that is through fee. The only other way to really do is through fees, and we
Right.
talked about the need to have potential, to consider a business licensing program ordinance for reasons that include, you know, assessing data needs to be up to date, and when we identify 100 or almost 40% of our commercial operations not being in the personal property tax database, that's a significant inequity for those that are. You know, how do we track that? There's no deeds filed with the county like you do when you buy real estate that shows you now own this. And so when you transfer a business or move a new one in, I mean, we don't have a mechanism to really, and we'd have to create the ordinance and then find a way to put capacity in place to still track and be on top of it. But as it is right now, there's nothing for it. So I think it would create an opportunity to make sure we're capturing the changes when they happen in businesses. We'd be able to, through the ordinance, in theory, stipulation that if you need to have a license to operate, it means you need to be in good standing. And so that's a mechanism to get them to pay the personal property tax that's past due. The ability for us to collect that through the lien process is not simple. It's terribly complicated. You're basically going through a small claims process, more or less, which is very different from the real estate side.
So where's the expense to accomplish the 15,000? I mean, somebody's got to do the work, right?
Right. We'd have to incorporate it within the existing staff capacity.
So what businesses get licensed? Is this only for new businesses or every existing business gets?
To be determined, but a lot of the ordinances that I've seen that get put in place, it's an annual thing.
So it's like a tax, an annual tax.
Okay. Say you're a business operating in town.
Do other towns do that?
There are some towns around us that do that.
Wiscasset.
Many?
Yeah, 3-year renewal.
Cities do as well.
I mean, it's a logical thing that we should be doing.
So as a former small business counselor, if I were advising somebody who think about starting a business, I'd have to say, don't forget, you've got additional fees, not only workers' comp, you've got a licensing fee, plus the town may charge other registration fees, plus blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Yep. So I would assume that because this number is pretty high, that you would include people we've never charged before, all the existing businesses, plus the new businesses that come in.
I mean, again, how some of them I've seen written are it's an annual relicensing fee. I mean, it's not unfamiliar to people in the restaurant industry to have to refile and renew their liquor license every year.
Exactly.
Or for the marijuana establishments to have to every year apply for the license that the town has to operate their marijuana establishments.
So this is a
And so it'd
third,
be a similar,
So what I'm getting at,
Second or-
was this $500 a business or what's the number?
so that number there is the equivalent of
Per
$50 a
vehicle,
business
just
with the estimate of 300 businesses, which I think is
What
like,
did they
it's
say?
lower.
It's not a-
Alright.
Yeah, I mean, there's no need to try, we're not trying to put a fee in place to try and really generate money. It's really to cover the costs needed to make sure that this program can help us, one, collect unpaid personal property tax. It can help us in the assessing department to understand when these changes in ownerships happen or a new business comes into place to make sure that we have a chance to go and fairly assess personal property tax as the state law requires. And I think there was another, well, on a land use side, I mean, there's businesses that'll move in. I mean, you might be in a commercial space, but if you are operating a retail operation and you want to, you know, have the opportunity to move into that former space, and now you want to open up a, you know, a beauty salon or maybe a small ice cream parlor. Well, that's now a different type of use in the land use ordinance that needs to be reconsidered. And so it's another place where it kind of all pulls it together to say, hey, you need to come check in and make sure that we're getting all the right things checked off here. And otherwise, all the other ordinances just are kind of these little standalone things. This would almost create a point where we'd be able to help answer those questions and make sure we're getting all the data we need.
So if somebody does pay their property taxes, and then they're paying for this license fees, part of which is to help recover unpaid property taxes.
In part,
Aren't they going to be a little bent out of shape that they're paying for someone else's delinquency?
they're not paying for someone's delinquency. If someone is delinquent, they wouldn't be able to renew their business license, would be one potential caveat of the ordinance.
Mhm.
And so it holds those who haven't paid accountable to make sure that they do pay.
And it's not logical
getting
that the
double
town
messages.
doesn't know how many businesses we have.
Right.
That isn't, I mean, the town should know.
I think it's too cheap because somebody's got to do the work to police it. So you're gonna eat into some of the expense to get the $50. I think it should be the minimum 100.
Well, I mean, that would probably, yeah. I mean, this is the point where I'm kind of entering, for discussion
The
and
ordinance,
I've, the way I've set it up is it was assuming 300 businesses at $50.
Right, no,
Yes,
that's,
I would
no, it's a
agree.
great assumption.
Three
I'm
hundred
just saying.
amount, 300 businesses at 50.
Okay, so that would be an ordinance as well.
It would have to be created as an ordinance in order for us to be able to enforce on the back end. I mean, if someone were in violation, you'd essentially treat it similar to you do like a land use violation and I believe it's the EDK action as well, if you needed to pursue that.
Change brands or something.
Sorry, everybody.
So the,
Yes, the water.
so the specifics of this have not been determined yet, is that right? Okay. I just want to, I understand and appreciate the need for additional revenue. I also have heard in the 30 years I've been in Maine that it is not a welcoming state for small businesses. I just don't want to add.
Do you think that $50 is unreasonable?
No, but that's why I'm asking, has it been determined yet what the specifics are?
No,
Yeah, because I was gonna say, what's the difference between a small business and a big business?
Right.
Well, and yeah, should there be a distinction between the two on a fee structure?
So, yeah, that's another question. I just want to keep that in mind that
Yeah.
we don't want to discourage.
It's not trying to
people from being
burden.
self-employed.
We're not trying to
Very small
discourage
business,
anyone.
yeah.
We're trying to figure out how many businesses do we have?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
As a businessman, operating a business in Wiscasset, I'm accustomed to having to have a business license. Could not open that clinic till went downtown and filled out the papers for a business license.
Yeah.
It's a part of doing business. I don't, yeah, and that, I can't speak for around the country, but
it's a blip on
I
the
don't
radar.
think you're gonna get an
Business.
objection to this being business unfriendly. It's.
It's a blip on the radar for somebody who's either starting a business or new business. They got so many other larger expenses to deal with. This is like, get
Right.
it out of the way.
Little pieces add up. to
Yeah,
big.
well-
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
it needs to be aware.
We have a
People
town
need
to run too.
Pardon me?
We have a town to run and we need to
Absolutely.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the personal property tax is not inconsequential. And
right.
we're not collecting for probably, would we estimate 60% of the,
40%.
yeah,
I mean, again, there's some assumptions in there, but of those that are in business and advertised, there's about 40% right now in town that aren't being taxed personal property.
and that's a revenue source that
That's
the
a
town
big
is entitled
percentage.
to under state law.
So
We're
why,
not collecting it.
so
So
why
at the
are
same
we-
time, we're
Right.
talking about the impact on residential property taxes. So this is one way to help alleviate some of that.
Yeah, the idea was to keep it de minimis enough so that, there isn't, this isn't a way to try and make money, right? I mean, this
right,
is
no, I-
just to
cover
try and keep it
expenses.
fair and accountable for, all of what we need to do and the pieces we are missing internally, because there isn't a way to really identify and
Sure,
streamline, when you open a business in town, like these are the things we need to have. And
Right.
it is very easy. I mean, aside, we're just talking today about how, sometimes a business, we only know what goes in there because it hits the front page of the paper. Like,
right.
oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Why wasn't there a
Right.
discussion about whether that use could go
Yeah.
in there? Again, which is a whole nother land use ordinance piece, but it's just, there's some missing pieces there that, again, we should be aware of and understand, and that we should know that when you do open a business, we do need to come in and get a personal property list from you. So the assessing department can
Right.
fairly tax someone that, which would minimally reduce the burden on everyone else by them
Sure.
paying their required amount.
So relative to Dan's comment, 40% of the personal property taxes are not collected. Why is that?
No, not even billed. They're not even in the system.
Why is that?
Because some
We
of
don't know
these
they-
businesses can
don't
come
know
in
they
and,
exist.
and
We don't know
that
they're
they
there.
exist.
Okay.
Some accounts have been deleted in the past for whatever reason. And so the selectmen and board of assessors heard from the assessor's agent last meeting. And there's a, a plan to try and get them on the record for next tax year.
Okay. So not all businesses register with the town, is that right?
No businesses register with the town. That's the
So
point.
why not? Some towns do.
Exactly, that's the point of the business license.
No, but that's
Yeah.
different from licensing. That's different.
In this case, I guess I'm using it interchangeably.
Oh, okay. Oh, you are.
I don't know the difference, I guess, between license and a registration on the local side.
Well, I guess I would, yeah.
Looking at it from a positive standpoint, that
Needs more money coming in.
that gives you an opportunity if the business. If they're out there and they start a business, they're on their own. If they have to come in here and if we do it right. Then that also gives somebody behind the counter a chance to say. Welcome to town.
By the way.
Do you have this? Do you have that? Did you know that you can,
Right.
right? You get a conversation. You talk
Right.
about being friendly to businesses.
You
and
have
welcoming.
situations like community block grants and things like that,
Yeah.
that we've run through in the
Yeah.
past where,
Right.
I mean, that's why you want to look at it a couple different ways, because your point, Connie, I struggle with this too. This whole personal property tax thing to me is, I won't go down that road, but
Yeah.
it's state statute, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to burden and at the same time be able to, straight face and offer a service there as well. And we can see opportunities where, again, community
Sure.
block grant, something might come along and say, oh geez, there's 7 businesses that are now registered in town that would fall under these categories and could get some
Right.
help and things. So there's those opportunities there as well.
Yeah.
When Nick opened his pizza shop, right, by the bank. I read in the paper, that somebody had written up, he was gonna do this, and they were gonna sell beer and wine, and I'm saying. He's opening in 2 weeks, that license didn't cross my desk, right, we're sitting
Right.
here, so I went. I went down and visited him, he was still building the thing. And introduced myself and said, gee, I'm concerned for you because. You're gonna sell this, but you haven't gotten the license and it takes this long. And so we got that straightened out, but the only reason that happened was because I saw it in the paper. As opposed to his coming in here saying, I'm going to a pizza shop, somebody can say, and are you gonna need a liquor license and do you know it takes this long to get that sort of.
Yeah, it's easier to pick up on when someone's constructing something
recording
new.
stopped?
That's very obvious when something new is being constructed, but when someone is able to reuse a space that's, a different business in it, that's just a little harder sometimes
Okay.
for people to know. And to
What's
track.
the definition of business?
Thank you. for
I mean,
saying
are
that.
you talking about just brick and mortar or maybe people who sell things out of a wagon or something like that? I mean, how do we describe
think-
business? I mean, and
That's
then
a good
there's
question. That's-
landscaping business
Right.
where you have nothing, no land.
Right, so no answer today. That's just a a point to put in the parking lot, so to speak. So when the policy conversation does come up and you are creating your ordinance, you do think about that. I mean,
Different.
right now, all I'm doing is throwing out there, is this gonna be a priority? And if so, here's an amount of money that would be raised essentially within this next fiscal year. I mean, it would, one thing would be nice would be to say, instead of having a rolling license period.
Yeah.
The license is good from this date to this date, and we just know that we can count on people to submit, just like you do homestead exemption applications, or, I mean, the liquor licenses are on a continuously, your period is good for 365 days, and just
Yeah.
as you put in, but we can kind of control some of that to know that like everything that's going to be in for the year will be submitted by this date. Things like parking permits and mooring fees are kind of similar. You expect the boat registrations, they're good for a certain period of time,
Right.
and you have until, you can come in anytime after that, but they're still only good for the same period.
Yeah.
So I think that would be one thing to do. One thing would be to determine, is there a difference between scale of a business? Something that's 30,000 square feet of operating space versus a home-based occupation.
Right, yeah, relative
so-
to that, to add to the pot there.
Yeah,
Someone who has
you
a
gotta pay
dog
for your-
walking
you gotta
business,
pay for your boat, you gotta pay for your dog.
right,
You gotta pay for a number of things that, you could say, why are the businesses getting exempt? I don't.
okay,
Well, we charge some now, right? We charge marijuana businesses. We charge vending licenses fees already. And there was another one that we do, I mean, I guess you consider the fee for shellfish harvest.
Yeah.
Another tax on a business,
Yeah.
but those are the only ones that I can readily think of that we tax as local
Yeah.
government.
And I'm thinking also the dog walking business. There's someone who does cleaning at somebody else's house or provides personal.
Mary.
That's all
Personal.
things.
Their
that have to do that.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mary.
as long as they're considered.
This seems like it will be a very robust conversation when this ordinance is being drafted. So can I suggest, I mean, it sounds like Connie, you'd like to be part of that, but it's something in the future. And knowing that we only have about 8 more minutes to go, is there anything else that we want to talk about for planning and developments while we have Michael here?
And we don't need to get into it now. The application fees are something that I know a number of applicants have come to George and said, these are shockingly low.
Yeah.
So not that I want to send them through the roof, but I think that's kind of you pay for service.
They need to
The
be
applicants
adopted.
can bear more, and they're not gonna pay for all of it certainly, but.
Yeah, we've had this conversation about the fee scheduling. and stuff like
Do
that.
the fee schedule.
Yeah.
And in the last ordinance, round of ordinance updates for land use, I did kick that out of basically, there's no amounts in there now, it just says select board sets the
Yeah.
fees, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at some point work on that, but. I think that between shoreland, site plan, the advertising notice, the subdivision, all of this. Permit versus application. There's probably reasonable amount of revenue that we can recoup there.
Adjusted.
You see, like from Newcastle, you see differences between us and Newcastle, on some of those line items?
They have a very different ordinance, so. Yes and no,
Same thing.
it's similarly low. They do intentionally try to basically they try to skew it so that the larger projects pay for application fees and smaller projects don't. And, yeah, we can do the same thing. But,
Yeah.
I just got something, I think it was a friend of yours just sent something around saying, oh no, it was Amanda, the attorney. That's something around, there was like 4 or 5 different towns and what their application fees were, which I looked at. And I think that we have room to go up without being ridiculous. But that's slipped my.
Yeah, they probably haven't been updated in a long time, you know.
This is all
Yeah.
gonna come under when we do our ordinance, when we write the ordinance and have that discussion.
I think, yeah, there's a lot there, so we have to pick and strategize, but yeah,
Yeah, we all set with, you good, Michael?
yeah, unless you.
Okay.
Upset.
Yeah, because we've got to,
Okay.
we've got to wind down here. I don't think there's anything else we can jump into.
Anything else, Andy?
Page
Michael?
21, solid waste.
Page 21,
solid waste. Solid waste, it is what it is, yeah.
Mike,
Let's do solid waste while we're right there on page 21, so solid waste. Yeah, so,
Is it really? much?
Yeah. for yourself, explanatory and solid waste.
Yeah, there's another,
All right,
page 21, solid waste, there's another increase this year. Just kind of highlighted there that in the last 5 years, we've gone up 38.8%.
Yeah.
In the fees assessed. Kevin and I did attend the meeting this year in Noblesboro, their annual meeting. I think it's the first one I've been able to attend. Certainly interesting to try and learn a little bit more about how the fees are identified, set for there's 2 member towns, Noblesboro and Jefferson, if you're not familiar, and then there's 3 other participating towns, and basically those towns share the cost of the municipal solid waste and the overhead. And then they let the items you pay for at the station, your demo, your tree
Yeah.
waste, your special hazardous waste, all of those fees collected there are intended to generate enough to cover the cost to properly dispose of those items. So it was interesting to kind of learn how they do the budget and present it, because it looked like you were missing almost 50% of it on paper. And it's being picked up on the fees, but different way to do it. So it was just a little bit eye-opening, kind of learning more about how they do that there. We did find the document in which sets them up as a council of government, which was something I learned that two towns can form a council of governments. Wasn't realizing that, but that's in statute. So that's what they operate under. It all runs through Noblesboro. That's captured in their audit reports, how the transfer station's doing financially.
Didn't the transfer stations expenses or budget go down this year? But assessments to the towns went up?
Yeah, so last year, they utilized $101,000 from their fund balance essentially. And this year they are not using that amount of money. So if you look at your fund balance as a recurring and available revenue source, but it's not growing by that amount or more every year, at some point, it's not going to be a revenue source for you. And that's essentially what it was. They were using, I think, 30,000 or so this year from their fund balance as opposed to the 100. So that's a $70,000 reduction in revenue. And
Yeah, okay, I was just.
What's the difference
No.
of that? What's the difference between department request and manager's proposal?
so the
bill from
difference,
them, the bill?
well, the difference is they operate on calendar year. So we're guessing what the second half of our next fiscal year is. And so
Okay.
one of them represents 8% and the other one represents 10%.
Oh, okay, right.
Just looking at how it's gone up in the last few years.
Yeah.
It just shows you that if you were to look at that way.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Andy. Yeah. We'll wrap up the budget committee meeting. Yeah, I'm gonna, select board meeting to move into here in about 5 minutes. I should hang out.
Could I,
We're just gonna take a recess until we,
Could I- raise something relative to last week's discussion about the fire department? Piece of information that I just learned the last few days. We do provide cancer insurance. I just heard the other day over the news that firemen, and Josh, you can verify this. Firefighters have to pay for their own cancer screening. And I'm not looking to raise the budget, but given that we don't pay them anything, except the token, is that true that firefighters have to pay their own cancer screening? And is that something we should consider or that should be considered?
They had different gone around the state the last couple of years and set up different places for screening.
And you have to pay for that yourself?
And I think the departments were covering some of the cost. We didn't get, we had like one member, I think, get into the allotted time. It's hard to get into, and I haven't heard anything more about
Okay.
more screenings this year. But yeah, most stuff comes out of our pocket.
Something to be mindful of.
Be mindful of, I guess, yeah.
Out. Everyone's seeing the financials.
Commissioners is here tonight.
Excuse me, do we know what is that cost?
What?
The cancer screening?
Cancer.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was, but it was pretty pricey.
It was pretty pricey.
Yeah, it is pricey, I know that.
Any of that.
And that comes out of your own pocket. Except sometimes departments pay for it.
Sometimes departments cover it, towns cover it, and sometimes it's.
Your own
the
insurance.
Insurance company will cover it a bit, some will.
Well, that cough drop saved me, Dan.
You're welcome.
It had a tickle and it would not go away. No,
Businesses don't.
Keep in mind, I think.
not go away.
It's a.
We done budget committee? I would take a motion to adjourn. Mary?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah,
Second.
a second, all in favor.
Mary wants to get out of here.
Jerry, we're leaving. Mary, thank you for being a timekeeper. You need a timekeeper, so don't ever hesitate to do that.
My pleasure. Bye all.
I find out.
Bye.
how it is.
Well, I'm gonna hang out. I've got an exciting.
Yeah, they're outside.
Exciting meetings tonight. What's on your agenda?
So some banking RFP, revaluation RFP, with questions on things. Entertainment.
Stay on this, but.
Yeah, you got this county regional planning presentation.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't. You know, there's a
Yeah, that was from last.
You're right, it's step.
So.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Big number.
Kind in there.
Yeah.
What's big chunk in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's just a minute and the cancel one started like 2.
Oh, and you've got a sign up list out there and a,
We do,
oh, look at that.
we do. That was,
Salt all over me. Just trying to hurry and get a clean shirt on. That's what I get. That's what I get.
Or do you think? My husband just had his phone. Did he? Well, in some actually of their own. Do their work. And he is not used to having.
How's it going? Not too bad. Back again? Yeah. I guess it seems like you just did one thing for you, didn't we? Yep. Oh. Oh,
Thank you, leaning towards, it has to do with how you work with the money.
Yeah.
So. Commissioners might want to hang out for a while, right? So, I mean, we can bang these out and then, I'd like to get, we should get recommendation out. And then, you want to do the commissioner stuff? We'll bounce around like we always do. Keep things moving.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
No. Maybe we'll.
Yeah,
I'm
trying to do is.
So.
The sheet I gave you guys tonight
Cannon's me.
was
I was hoping you had to come back again.
how those rates performed over the last 3 years. Because a lot of them did tie it to an index.
Jumping around.
So I mean, the best one rate
Agenda.
being offered, how they performed is
Yeah.
northeast.
Yeah, northeast.
Play fast and loose.
From the effective Fed
Yeah.
rate.
But it's not.
Letters, numbers and.
Those differences, it's like $3,000.
Depends how much money you have in there.
Yeah, no. So how much, what are you estimating? Or what do you, did you do anything about what the differential?
If I did it right,
What's this for? With that? That was a graph that Andy included. We passed it out tonight, just.
so if we had $1 million in the account, and the
Financial
difference
banking
between
arm.
the effective Fed fund rate and the next one is point.
No, we haven't got away yet with that, yeah, so.
Building.
You know,
For our purposes.
we've got probably 2.5 times that in the bank on average, if in just the general fund.
Realistically, it's set up.
But what is the difference in?
That, it's just
Per $1 million.
Oh, okay.
Addition to last budget.
That's over a 3-year period. That's what the difference would be on the effective Fed fund rate.
Costs us so much money.
That's the average difference over that 3-year
Yeah,
period.
emergency management costs a lot of money. Fire department,
Take that.
ambulance.
No, fire department.
2.5 million, you know, when you're at-
$2
Start adding some real numbers there. I mean, a good chunk, about half of what we said we have in there right now is reserve account money. We can do something even different with that, but that probably.
Paying the same to
Higher
have county
TDs
services.
in shorter periods, but
It is. We would.
So if you're going to substitute
Yeah.
county services for
rates.
what we need for
Well, the rates, if they're tied to an index.
They to get the same
right, but they
service.
still change.
Oh, they may, yes, except for the fixed rate.
Except for the fixed one.
You're gonna have to ask.
I mean, that was 3 years, go back to January.
It's funny, you can have a little,
It's been voted. Me personally, I'm not gonna go down this road because this has been hashed over. And it's been-
it's like a.
Yeah, and people have overwhelmingly said we want to.
What's gonna happen if they fund raise for the next 3 years,
Right?
Yeah.
But what do you pay for? It's a safety
So I
service.
was
and
looking at the
a
Fed
community
fund
policing
futures
service.
market today. Okay.
We have a town of
And it changed
well
a lot
over
in the
10,000
last
people a
couple
day.
weeks. Right now,
You know,
we're only talking
that
potentially
comes through.
one
You're not gonna have one constant.
in December.
And we understand that, yeah, and then the revenue side of it's
That's so
different.
far out.
That's the crux of our issue is that
I mean, it makes.
No, we're not
Basically,
rates are
we're not Noblesboro, and Jefferson,
It's
the
with the market.
surrounding towns that have the same.
Because they don't know how to price the risk right now.
Yeah,
All
we're,
those things-
but that's
things
that's
are
the cost of being a
right?
service center.
Is that a typo?
And which is what we are. Well, we get business revenue. People coming in. spending
No, my
money.
guess is that what they've done is they have,
Some
they
people
have
pay-
used Cedars,
well,
they've
it
used
does.
Cedars
It keeps
or-
businesses
or
going,
these
keeps people
little-
employed. So it's a.
basically they
it's-
have
5:30
all these
Yeah,
sharing
we're moving,
pockets where
so.
they just put money into
All righty.
around.
Everybody ready?
We're good.
We all ready?
Good.
We're ready? All right, we took a short little recess, so we're actually still in session, so I'm just gonna move along and call the next part of our meeting here. I'll call the select board Damascotta to order for what is it? The 19th, right? Here we go. So we just came out of a little budget meeting, so we're trying to. No, we should be good. Yeah, I don't think anybody's out there making too much noise, are they? Yeah, we'll let them in. Yeah, so before we get too far into this, folks, I would ask the board, if it pleases the rest of the board, I'd like to maybe add something and move something around here. So we do have a gentleman that might be waiting for a liquor license renewal, so it's okay if I move up one of the official action items. Sure. We're good? All right. No. What's it? You ready, Josh?
I am good.
Oh, I thought you moved it already. Okay.
I'll move it if you want me to.
All right, so.
Make a motion to do the liquor license renewal for American Legion Wells Hussey Post 42.
All right, thank you, Josh. Dan's gonna second that one. I saw his hands go up, so, all right, any discussion? Hey, all those in favor? Okay, that's it, yeah, no problem, you can get back to work, so, yeah, so.
All right, Ryan, take care.
Hey, Ryan, yeah. And we do, I believe we have some guests here tonight, Andy. Do we have something that's not on the,
Yes.
not on the agenda officially, but.
Right, Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission, one of their commissioners and Emily, who's the director for the Planning Commission, is here to present a check to the town.
Holy moly.
I did print off the award letter that they had provided us late last year.
Yep.
The money would be put towards identifying a place for future workforce housing and trying to run through some feasibility assessment and analysis of standing something up and trying to get something approved through the permitting process. And so with that, I'll let them follow up with that.
Awesome, yeah.
Well,
Hey, guys.
While
Dave?
it's coming up with the big check, I just want to thank you all for submitting the grant application and for your efforts for affordable housing. And by the way, for those who don't know me, I'm David Levesque. I'm the commissioner for District 3, which includes Damascotta. So I'm glad to be here to present. I'll come back at some time so we can talk about your needs and how the county can help on anything, but tonight we can deal with this. What you can do for me in the meantime is come and visit some of our meetings, Tuesday, the first and third Tuesday, 9 o'clock at the courthouse. And if you can't make it, encourage others to come see us there, because usually we just have the media there.
Participation in the future?
Well, the district attorney participated by Zoom recently. But I don't know if we have a full policy or just generally anybody wanting to join us that way, but I will look into that because we need to be more transparent and get it out there. And like you folks are on LCTV through here, and I think the county should broadcast that way.
Not everybody. 3, 2, 1, cheese. I took a bunch.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Just in case someone had their eyes closed.
And that one's not erasable, like the 20th.
Yeah.
So we gave it our own.
The next name on.
There we go.
Put our own amount on there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Yeah.
And I look forward to connecting with you at some point in time to
Yeah,
hear
sure.
something.
Yeah. Yeah, we always have time to set a chat.
Funny how that.
Yeah, move that right up on the agenda too. All right, who else has money?
Yes.
Gonna make the rest wait it out.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, guys. So, all right.
Thank you, Andy, for applying.
Yeah, that
Right.
was pretty well, so.
Might jumpstart some of the, rearrange some of the priorities in the comp plan when we're doing them, but
I
Yeah.
hope so. Well, housing is right on top of
it's,
the list.
well, in general, it is, yeah.
So.
It's up there a ways, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's right up there.
Awesome. All right. Let me get back on track here. We'll go down through some housekeeping. Minutes, February 5th. Any issues, changes? Everybody look good?
Tom's name.
I did not know.
Tom's name?
I mentioned
Oh.
the
Oh,
police.
yeah, there's a lot of issues there. They need to get fixed. There's a lot of issues there. The numbering is all out of whack.
Well, that's explainable because the items were taken out of order from the posted agenda, so
Right.
Leslie was tracking them as we moved and shuffled them. In the past, I just kept them in the same order as the agenda and didn't matter to move it around. But she was tracking it as they were brought up and discussed, so
Yep.
we
Thank you,
track with the
Leslie.
video.
No, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Perfect.
Yep. So there's no major issues, I think, no.
No.
Well, it's
I
good.
noted- Did note your name.
Yeah, that's all right. Well,
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
got you the sign up sheet out here now and yeah. Expect you to know everybody, I put like, blue shirt, red hat type of thing. That's. Glenn used to do that sometimes, so, yeah, that's what it is. All right.
Approve.
You making a motion, Andrew?
Making a motion to approve the February
Fifth.
5th. Thank you.
Yep.
Minute
All right,
for the select board.
I'll second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, so payroll, 40, everybody had a chance to look over payroll and accounts payable?
Mhm.
Payroll for 40.
All right, thank you, Josh.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? All those in favor? And accounts payable 41.
Accounts payable warrant 41.
All right, I'll let you have that one. Yeah. I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okey dokey. All right. And anything coming last minute, Andy?
Just two quick things, just comments that came in.
Hands up there. Yeah.
There is a application for aquaculture lease,
Okay.
municipal questionnaire that came in. This is for, I think this is a renewal. I think this was for a new site. Standard lease, 20 years for Dodge Cove Marine Farm LLC. It's suspended bottom culture and shellfish. So we just got that in a little while ago. So that's, I think Tara sent that out to the committee. I think this one might be an intertidal one. Gotta go back and double check and reread it, but brought that. We had a couple letters that came saying arguably the same thing from CMP. Just sharing, given the tree removal and maintenance that happened this winter. But they are identifying that, they want to invest in the lines and make sure that the service stays reliable. But just giving a heads up that they intend to, as the weather allows, come back and do some more clearing under some of those major lines there to make sure that there aren't issues.
Gotcha.
But
All right.
just provided a contact if folks had questions about that.
They've been clearing all along though. Like they've been out there today. They're out there for the last couple.
Yeah, it's Chinborough. There's a bunch of them that have been out.
Mhm.
Unless I'm working through this cold. And there's bucket trucks. Oh, all right. Yeah, and the wind. All right. Manager's report, Andy, listen to highlights. Anything exciting going on?
Happy,
Right now?
happy to yield this if we want to consider taking up the banking RFP.
I wonder, I seen back there. I was watching him.
Well, he got
I
money.
did
right?
say if anybody had any money,
yeah,
step
yeah,
up, but he
yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
jump up. So we can do that. We can do that. Yeah, I won't torture him anymore. So let's bounce up to yeah, the official action items will bounce up to two here for RFP reviews for banking. And, yeah. What do you want to start us off, Andy? How do you want to go?
So on the summary pages there in your packet,
Mhm.
I did post all of the responses we got to the website as well as this summary for anyone that wanted to review it. We did get 6 responses, 4 of the banks being in town, 2 of them not being based in town. And there's a range of rates to consider. One of the pages I gave you this evening does plot out and kind of show you what how those indexes performed over the last 3 years. And one of the options was presented as a fixed rate. So all things being equal and assuming like some of the, for example, First National Bank had tied it to the effective Fed fund rate at 85%. And so I assumed looking back 3 years, how would that have
Mhm.
performed at that?
Yeah.
Just again with the fixed as well. So that shows you there the 6 offers that we had. Each bank had a different one. But I mean, that's one of the pieces of the puzzle there is to understand how can our money's collected, earn and work for us while it's in the bank, given that it doesn't all go out at once. Other aspects of that we had asked for CD rates. I didn't plot the CD rates out. One bank just had TBD on there actually.
Yeah.
But CD rates are gonna change all the time anyways. So, I mean, nobody's gonna lock into a CD rate today for 3 years from now, so, yeah.
Right, yeah, we asked for it as of that date, just
Yeah.
so everyone could presumably compare the others.
Yeah, no.
But seeing those, I mean, they're all relatively close, but still, some have a sizable difference between some of them. We had asked about fee structures and a couple of the banks did charge some fees. One charged a lot of fees relative to the others. That's actually our current bank.
You see that? Yeah.
I probably wasn't as fully aware of the fees that we were paying on some of the transactions or services that we get from them, but seeing it all side by each year with these 6 proposals, is, pretty interesting to be able to compare these.
When you looked at it, did you find out how much it would be for a year with the existing bank?
I did not.
Just curious.
No, when we had 4 that didn't offer fees at all, I kind of didn't put a lot of effort into what it did cost us. I can find out.
I just wondered if it was substantial or not. I mean, because that would be a big factor if it is a large number.
A couple other things we had asked for people, the banks to kind of fill out and share with us were some of the other services they offer, whether again, there were fees or not associated with those on this kind of that 3rd page. Supplies they'd be providing to us. Just a disclaimer on the checks provided. One bank had added it to their list. I'd missed it on at least one other bank. I think First National Bank, Jason said that was included in their list as well. I just didn't see it in there when I filled this out. So some of the banks do offer no fee and do include checks as part of that. The Northeast Bank had a note that it would be up to, I think, $750 over the 3-year period.
Is the checkoff time, is that a problem for you at 3 o'clock for one of them?
We typically deposit on. So Bangor, of course, currently having 2 locations in town, we've got staff that just take it on their way home from work, so they're already depositing them after the closeout anyways. They close out at 5. They leave here at 5:30 and drop it off on their way home. So I don't know that it's a problem per se. I mean, you lose out for the night, the additional deposit for the night, but not sure that amounts to.
Well, if they close out at 5 and the cutoff is at 3, you'd have to roll it to the next day.
Another piece we had asked for that was hard to put in this side by view was the community support they all offer. And I didn't include in this spreadsheet the references they were offering, but all of them work with communities, some a little more local than others. But community support was an interesting piece to learn about how some of the banks provide support the communities that they serve or regions. I think one of the banks said, I forget which one it was now, but noted the counties they work in support, and Lincoln County actually wasn't listed on the list.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Like, oh, well, maybe I assume that would change. Or might change.
One would hope.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about the rates? Sure. Because just on the expected rate, because 'cause we're talking what, 2.5 million, 3 million on average.
Yeah, we currently have on average, we'd asked them all to assume that there was an average balance of 5.5 million.
Right.
So the way we've got it currently set up is just one checking account for the
Right.
general fund.
Yeah.
About half of that is allocated and earmarked for reserve accounts and the balance of the bond that we had taken out,
Right.
waiting for the road projects. So about half of that is money that's committed and could be viewed to be invested kind of separately and
It's a
managed
little longer
separately.
term. Yeah.
And so, you're about 2.5, maybe $3 million on average on the regular operating
Yeah.
general fund.
Yeah.
That would be in the bank.
And on let's say $3 million, the difference, let's say a half a point on $3 million is how much? I didn't bring my calculator. I'll let Tom do it in a second.
5,000?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, so that's a big deal.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, big deal.
Yeah, that's you. It's a sports update though, I think.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the rates part of it, a big part of, where we're setting the general fund checking
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah,
Internally, we do want to split off and get the reserve account separate from the general. I mean, it helps with cash flow and floating bigger projects to make sure we've got money to pay for things, but
Mhm.
we generally do anyways. It's just,
Yep.
I think Cheryl had said they used to have accounts for each reserve account set up at the bank, which made it very clean. It created a lot more reconciliation, essentially for each account you had to
Yeah.
go through that, but it did create a very clean track of
Yeah.
how things were being managed that way. But so I think there's a strategy within, where we go with that, and if we were to look at putting the general fund checking in one of the banks that will perform the best for us, you could always look at, putting the CDs in. If maybe one had a higher CD rate than the other, I mean, you could always look at considering investing in CDs or, alternatively, I think I want to look into it more to understand it better. But for some of the reserve accounts that truly are much longer term and we won't be expecting to expend from in a 3 or 5 year period, are there other ways to invest that safely and legally that would yield a potentially higher return?
right.
Jason.
They had suggested that there was a way that they could manage some of those funds for us and be within Title
Yeah.
30A. So
Yeah.
I think that's just more to brought it up with the finance committee coming back and having them look at that. But I mean, there's advantages obviously to having a bank physically located in town.
Right.
It makes it a lot easier. If they aren't physically located in town, there's an opportunity. I believe all of them are willing to offer a remote capture deposit equipment. And that is a solution you can have to make sure your checks are deposited on a timely basis, will not have to hold on to those unprocessed. We would need a solution to deposit cash. I think one of the banks northeast, for example, I think is Augusta's probably the closest location to us. And Bar Harbor Bank and Trust, I'm assuming Rockland would be the next closest location for us. So that would require us to either drive up there and deposit it. And depending on the amount of money that's come in, like during tax season, that could be a sizable amount of cash that you probably wouldn't.
Kind of a
I think some of the
liability, right?
staff certainly wouldn't feel comfortable driving that.
Yeah.
with that. And so you're talking about potentially 2 staff people going up to do that.
Not
Or
necessarily.
you could set up a smaller account with one of the local banks to deposit your cash. And then,
Yeah.
again, it's another bookkeeping piece for Cheryl to manage, but you can move that money, then transfer that into your other account
Right.
as needed.
Yeah, it just strikes me just as a thought that if it was going to be a bank that's not based in Damascotta, there'd have to be a sort of a premium in
Mm.
terms
Oh,
of
yeah.
the rate to
Yeah.
make that really worth our while.
Mhm.
So I would think.
Right.
So,
We do have someone from one of the banks here tonight. If there's any questions about that one in particular, or if Jake, if you wanted to offer anything about your proposal, you're welcome to do so.
Come on up. Yeah, I was just saying.
Sure.
Come on up. and We'll put you on the
Is
mic.
the
Just-
rate, is the rate negotiable? It's my question.
So, thank you. My name is Jake Miller. I'm actually the government banking officer for First National Bank. So I handle all the municipal banking throughout the whole banking franchise. Known Andy for years. I support the Midcoast Municipal Association, which has a lot of Lincoln County municipalities that participate in that. And, you know, this is my gig. I really love it. First National Bank has been in Damariscotta since 1864. We're one of the oldest banks in Maine. We're probably one of your biggest taxpayers, paying $80,000 a year on the tax roll for property taxes. You know, certainly wanted to bring that up in consideration as well, knowing that not only is it the tax roll that we pay, but also the nearly 100 employees that we have working in Damariscotta that are shopping and dining in the local restaurants every single day, contributing back to the local economy here in Damariscotta. I know that our rate isn't the highest on the checking account. We had to provide an index, and that's what we provided. We also did provide a 4.35% CD rate, which is the same rate as the Northeast Bank option. So there would be a way to have your cake and eat it too, if you will, by depositing locally here in town and supporting a bank that supports you, while also taking advantage of that 4.35% CD rate that we offered. I think that was a 6-month rate that was available on the promotion. Northeast Bank offered a 4.35% on the checking account. I wish I could tell you that I could do that and it wouldn't be right for me to change the rate at this type of meeting. You know, you asked us all for rates, we're giving you the rates that we're offering. But what I can tell you is that if you need me to come to a town meeting, I'm on vacation this week. I'm ping-ponging between Tenants Harbor, where I live, and Augusta to 2 basketball games today. And I came here especially for this meeting because we really feel the value of doing business with the town of Damariscotta. This is where we're headquartered. You know, our proposal clearly states that, and that's a proposal that everybody that gets across the state, that we're headquartered in Damariscotta, Maine, and we're proud of it. This is public information, so I can share with you, the town of Newcastle moved their business over from Bangor Savings Bank to us last March, and they've been very happy. They're actually one of the references that I listed there. The county of Lincoln is our customer as well. Again, public information, so I can share that with you. Several references locally around here that you could call, should you want to or need to. I know it's not now, but in the past, I worked with Andy on Vinyl Haven when he was there, managed that banking relationship. So he is very familiar with me. We have each other's cell phones. We talk regularly. If you need me, I'm available. Everything is free. Municipalities don't pay for anything with us. Check orders. Somebody asked a question about check orders and knowing what are those costs. I can tell you that with a size municipality like this, you're probably looking anywhere between $1,500 and $3,000 a year just in check order fees. So, you know, it ranges based on how the municipality does that. We do not charge check order fees, whether you want to order them on your own and we reimburse you, or we order them for you, they will be complimentary. And it's the same thing with that. There are 0 fees across the board. Somebody writes the town a bad check to pay for their property taxes. We don't charge you a chargeback fee or return item fee. That's a no questions asked thing. Should anything come up, rates in particular, can't say now for this because we put our offer out there, but in the future, should you select us, we can have a conversation about rate anytime. That is something that is on the table. You know, rates are, I think you made the point earlier, rates change. They change all the time. During the pandemic, rates were dog low. And then we went up to historic highs at a very rapid pace. And I can tell you honestly that with every single one of those municipalities that I manage, I called them personally and said, the rates have gone up. We can do better for you. Here's what your new rate is. No town manager had to call me and ask me to increase their rate. And we did this multiple times. In addition, when I go on vacation, not if I'm out for a day, but if I'm gonna be out for a week, I always notify either the finance director or the town manager or both, depending on who I interact with most, to let them know, I'm gonna be on vacation next week. This person's going to be covering for me while I'm gone. If you need anything before I leave, please feel free to let me know. And that's the level of service that I can honestly tell you that I provide, and I don't believe my competition is based on what I'm hearing about that. So, we're happy to support you guys any way that we can. And I know that on paper, our checking account rate isn't the highest, but the whole picture, I forgot to mention another very important part. In the last 5 years, we included a document in the proposal where the bank has supported local nonprofits in the Damariscotta region, $609,000 in the past 5 years. So I can assure you that if you were to look at the competition in this local region, nobody is going to come to the table with a number even close to that in Damariscotta. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have, and I very much thank you for allowing us to be part of this opportunity and to participate in this RFP.
Well, thank you, Jake. Yeah. Anybody have any questions for?
Well, if we have a lot of inactive funds, if you will, we got an operating account and we had a lot of money that we would like to invest at a higher rate. You also have investment management function, right?
We do.
Can you talk about that a little?
Sure. I don't work in the wealth management and the investment services division. However, we have colleagues that are right here in Damariscotta that do. And we could, if we're talking about non-FDIC insured, like HM Payson type investments, yes, our wealth management division, I'm pretty sure many of you may know Gary Stone, Matt Weaver. These gentlemen sit right here in Damariscotta and they work with our wealth management division. They're very knowledgeable. They have vast experience. They work with countless municipalities and nonprofits. And they are willing to meet with you anytime. Andy and I had a brief conversation about this recently, just to say, and I know this RFP wasn't about your investments, but to say, if you ever want a second opinion and for us to review that, what is the fee that you're paying? What is the, they could take a look and see if you were to go with us, this is what we'd recommend, and this is what your anticipated, growth or your return would be versus where you are right now. And we'd also be honest with you and say, based on what you're paying for a rate, if the rate was good as far as the fee, and what the return has been with your current institution, we would be honest with you and tell you that too. We're not here to try to snag a sale and make it worse for the town. But in this banking proposal, knowing that, looking at the whole picture, I really do feel like we put together a nice offering for the town that we could all feel good about. And I'd be happy to introduce you to Matt and Gary anytime, or bring them in to a meeting anytime you want. They're happy to come to select board meetings and provide updates on wealth management anytime.
Do different municipalities have different rate structures? Like yours is 85% of the effective Fed funds rate. Do some towns have just the effective Fed funds rate, or let's say 50% of the effective?
Not with us. We don't have a lot of municipalities on indexes right now. We provided you an index because that's what the RFP asked for.
Okay.
Typically speaking, our municipal rate is a 3.60. That's what it is right now. It shifts, it goes up and down based on the rate.
But you control that rate though?
We control that rate. You guys asked for an index, so that's what we provided.
Okay.
And to your favor, it's a little bit higher. It's a 3.68 versus a 3.60. But we picked that particular index because it was the closest that came to the existing municipalities that have that 3.60 rate. We didn't want to offer Damariscotta something that wouldn't be fair to your neighbor, Newcastle, that's getting, a comparable rate. And the same thing goes with having conversations about, if you have reserve funds that you need to put a home into. My dedication, and Andy and I have worked together long enough to know that, if there's a conversation that needs to happen about that, I'll probably be the one proactively asking him about that, but certainly it can come the other way as well. So the main point being here is that we're going to make sure that we're doing the very best that we can offer for the town.
Thank you, Jake. Yeah.
Yeah. Only because I asked Andy, did you have a position on what interest rates are going to do for the next 2 years, 3 years?
Unfortunately, I don't have the crystal ball. Ball cap already. What I have been, in all the research that I've done.
It's a totally unfair question.
I know. So, the short answer is, I don't know. But what I have read is that this year there were predictions for 2 rate decreases. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. They met in January, they decided to forego that. You probably already know this. And so we're not in a place right now where we're just kind of holding court. And to your benefit, you know, for you to be getting, you know, checking account offers in the 3-4% range and CD rates at a 4% range, that's great. You know, take advantage of this opportunity right now, you know, at these higher rates, because during the pandemic, we were, you know, very low, not even close to this. And so I'd like to tell people, ride this wave and make the money while you can. And just know that you would have a trusted banking partner that cares. The bank is here. It matters to us how we offer and support your town because we're headquartered here. So, you know, so we're going to do our very, very best for you if you choose us. So happy to answer any other questions and just very happy to be here and make your acquaintance.
I appreciate you coming in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Danny can take pictures too.
And we put him to work. Yeah, we did
Put him to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Happy to do it. We have the bank, you may have seen, we have a big check. That is Michael. Theirs is a poster, which was something that I had never seen before.
Yeah, rolled up. I was hoping for the big,
We have the actual big
you know,
check. and
the
it-
big A, big man, you know,
Yeah,
there we go.
foam and you just spray and wipe it and all of that. So unfortunately, I didn't have one of those to bring to you tonight, but I was happy to take the picture. So,
Yeah.
And can I assume that the maximum federal insurance, you have like Cedars or something like that?
So
She's
it's,
drawn a bit.
free insured cash sweep, unlimited.
Insured
And-
cash, you use the ICS program.
Yeah, insured cash sweep, and then Cedars for CDs.
Okay.
Yep. And that's all baked in. There's no extra cost to you for that. It does cost the bank money to do that, but we don't turn that cost over to the customer.
Yeah.
And that protects it. If anybody isn't familiar with that, that is FDIC insurance for every cent above the 250 threshold. So the town's funds would be 100% protected. And I think somebody had asked a cutoff question for us. So our electronic features have a cutoff at 3 o'clock. However, our branch, if you go into the branch after 3 and make a deposit, that would be same day. So it would only be after 3 o'clock if you were using the remote deposit capture or ACH services. That's where the cutoff is.
Oh, gotcha.
And most municipalities do that way before 3 o'clock.
So otherwise it's 5?
Yeah, when the branch closes. So usually 5 o'clock. They can vary.
Anybody, timeline and stuff, I mean, what are you looking at for?
As early as today, and if you want more time to review it, I think forget what the window was. I think it was like
Yeah.
some of them had like a 30-day, or I can't go back and look at them, but
So
we'd advertise that we might just select as early as today.
So one critical issue about return on investment is how much is our operating account balance? And how much would be set aside potentially for investment? So that, because when you talk about the rate differentials, you know, that's assuming on the cash that's sitting there, the operating account. So what do we usually have in that balance?
So we kind of commingled all together, but right now our reserve account balance is, for all the reserve funds we have, is about 2.3 million or so. And the money from the general bond for the paving is about $800,000. So you got about $3 million right now that is earmarked and specifically designated for other purposes that aren't going to generally be spent in.
No, but for liquidity, how much do you think you need? I mean, as far as paying bills and all that kind of thing.
Oh, I mean, I don't know if I have to go back and ask Cheryl and have her map it out. Instead of just giving you a guess today, I can go back and.
Let's
look
say
at
it's,
it.
let's say it's 500,000, so all that other money could be invested at a higher yield, right?
Potentially.
We
That
are,
makes a big difference in the selection process.
but just so that I'm new to municipalities too, if you will, in finance, but we can't invest in like the stock market or anything. It's very limited in
Very
terms of
limited,
what,
yeah.
so maybe, so HM Payson's probably just investing in like US government debt or bonds or that sort of thing.
I'd have to go back and look at what they're, because they showed us in that report they gave us. I can't remember all of it. I know
It
Tom
was all in one thing. I think it was
Yeah.
all, I think it's all government bonds, so.
Oh, it did well over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I don't recall.
Yeah.
To the tune of like 8 or 10%.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like you're gonna get like outsized returns, like 20% or something.
No, but you're gonna get returns that are at least probably equal to the other rates. that
You
the other
would,
banks
yeah,
have.
yeah, you would, yeah, but it's not gonna be like 8%, it's gonna be like 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah, no, but it's gonna be competitive, which.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
sort of
sure.
Levels the
Yeah.
playing field. If you've got a small operating account, you know,
Yeah,
you're not gonna earn that differential in that small operating account in terms of the absolute dollars that we were talking about earlier. Wouldn't be that high.
The only thing I would recommend, I don't work in wealth management as I disclosed, but I would just say, keep in mind the fee might offset some of the revenue. If you were to invest it, you know, so that is one thing that I would consider, whereas if you were to lock it into a CD right now, there is no fee.
Right.
You know,
It
so,
would probably be a combination of the all.
Sure.
you know.
and it could be that maybe right now you do a checking CD combo, rates go down, okay, now all of a sudden we want to invest in the market, it's worth it for us to do that. So, you know, so those are some of the conversations that, you know, your banker should be having with you.
Does anybody have any feelings about this evening, or is this something we need to get more information on to banker,
Well,
your colleagues down here?
yeah,
And
I'd like to see if we could somewhat determine what the operating account balance might be out of the 3 million or whatever we have. Because this rate thing is the biggest issue, as I see, is the differentiating factor amongst the banks.
Which one are you talking about?
Well, if we have one big pot right now, if we had 2 pots. One for operating account, checking accounts, you know, incoming, now going.
So why don't we do
And
that
then
already?
another one for investment, which would pretty much level the playing field amongst all the banks. So if you, let's just say 3/4 of the amount of money that we have be for investment. And then only, you know, 1/4 would be getting the lower rate from them because they have a lower rate. That sort of makes things back in line amongst the competition.
You're talking about taking away a capital reserve fund and putting it into a CD.
Yeah, or CD or
CD
something.
or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
all our operating cash flow,
yeah.
put that in a checking account.
I'd like to see that before we make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to map out what the cash flow looks like, probably on a monthly basis.
Well, because
Expenses.
it's
and
pretty
incomes.
cyclical with the property tax.
Well, over year to year it is, but I mean, over the course of a 12-month period, it's not. You know, if you look at each month as an equal,
Oh,
it's
it's-
certainly
yeah.
not, because you got tax payments twice a year, and so you're getting a huge influx of money in October, and another chunk in April.
We've never had any tax anticipation.
Right,
notes,
right.
So we don't wanna get,
You
we
don't,
don't wanna get ourselves in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
point either.
No,
Yeah, I think
Is
the best
there-
way for us to do that is just show what the.
How long will it take to do that?
Tomorrow, but point next week.
So if we defer this a week, is that gonna be a problem?
I think so.
we'll go to the next meeting, when's the next meeting? Yeah. Then we can.
It'd be March 5th would be your next regular meeting.
so which bank are you leaning towards, Tom? Which one do you think is?
Well, I
better?
just think that
Looking for
based on what I
somewhere.
said, the playing field gets much closer. Okay, and there are a lot of differentiating factors that he pointed out. Because of, he's in the community and he's supporting the businesses, the nonprofits, we know that. So we need to understand how substantial the impact financially will be between him on an equal playing field and the others before we make a decision.
Right, and I know exactly where you're coming from, Tom, what you're trying to accomplish, make sure it equalizes.
Yeah.
maybe another suggestion. So, I definitely feel, that's why I brought up the fact that the CD funds or the 4.35 are the same rate that Northeast was offering on the checking.
Mhm.
Because that is an equalizer from that standpoint, if you don't need the funds. I want to pit, I'm not changing the rate, but I'm throwing this out there, and this is, any bank could offer this as well. Or something to consider, is that you could do laddered CDs. So the laddered CDs come due, and even though you ask for a 6, 9, and a 12-month on this, it could be done as a 90-day, or a 3-month, a 6-month, and a 9-month. And a portion of those funds, as they come due, 3 months goes by, Andy says, we're good, roll it over for another 3 months.
Right.
Andy says, no, cash flow's tight, we need to redeem that and put it in the checking account.
Right.
So that is really, if I were your banker, how I would structure this is, how do we get, for those reserve funds that don't need to be used right now, how do we make the most for those funds in these increments? Because Andy or Cheryl or somebody here will probably know in 3 months, we're gonna need X amount of money. And if you have all that in your checking account, great, but if you don't have enough
Yeah.
there, then you can do the laddered CD thing.
Right.
And so we responded to the proposal based on how the proposal asked us to respond. However, and I think that was kind of the idea between the 3, the 6, and the 9-month, or the 6 and the 9 and the 12-month CD. But you might want to bump that up a little shorter and have a 3-month, a 6-month, and a 9-month. And then that way, like I said, you can roll it over if you have the cash flow to do that, or you can redeem it and use it for cash flow needs when it comes due.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we just need some more data for you guys to be comfortable, which. We'll make any decision tonight.
Very long, so
Yeah.
let's wait.
Yeah, we can make a decision tonight. There's some great info and big thank you for coming in and going over this with us, bringing us up to speed and whatnot. So, yeah. Yeah,
I've been around for a while. I think it's the first time bankers come in and talk and say, hey, we want to represent.
That's really, yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and why
We've had
isn't,
proposals before, but no one really showed up. So.
and why isn't, why is the bank that we're currently using not helping us either?
Well, apples to apples.
Yeah,
Saying.
yeah.
It's an RFP process, and anyone's able to.
He didn't call me to ask me to be here. I tell you that,
The
so.
only one that bothered to come in, he's the only one that bothered to come in,
But it wasn't it wasn't a requirement they had.
No.
but he's being proactive, which means he's gonna be proactive on our account.
Mhm.
Not everyone shows up to your construction ones, but on the big numbers, they do.
Big numbers,
They
yeah.
do, yes.
Yep, we've got some big numbers in our bank account, so.
Okay. Well, why don't we, if we can get some figures that Tom requested, if we can feel more comfortable to make an informed decision, so.
Even better, if let's say you figure out you need $500,000. And then you know what the difference is. If he could get some feedback as to what they could do with that money, it would be helpful too.
Well, but if you're gonna do that to him, you need to do that to everyone.
That's true, that process, yeah.
So if you make the decision,
Right.
and then you.
I think that's about when it comes down to us, Tom, you're looking for the comfortable number for our cash account.
I'm looking to make money.
Right, and then you wanna make money,
I wanna make money.
what's gonna cover our bills for a
Yeah.
certain amount of time, and can we put the rest of those funds in CDs?
Trying to grow the.
And try to grow the funds even more.
Right.
So what, we just need to define amongst ourselves what that number,
Right.
comfortable number needs to be,
Yeah.
and then we can make a decision.
Yeah.
And then we can monkey around with the rest of the stuff later.
Right.
And I would also balance convenience and time in that as well. If somebody has to drive to Augusta to make a cash deposit, or Rockland, that's not convenient and that's not good use of time. So, that does add up in the liability factors that come along with that, so. There's a lot of things to think about here, but I do appreciate the conversation. Is there anything else that I can answer, or?
Oh, I think you've done a great job.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Enjoying the rest
So
of your
we'll,
time off.
Yeah, I'm heading back to Augusta, so I gotta tell you really quick, I'm sorry to keep you guys, but. My son, I live in Tennant Harbor, my son has high school choice where we live, it's a K-8 school.
Yeah.
He chose to go to Camden Hills, so I'm like. Driving down here, I was watching, his girlfriend is on the varsity team, he's up in Augusta watching her. Driving down here, they beat the #1 undefeated team, which is Lawrence out of Fairfield.
They did.
19-0
I
for the
was
season.
watching that game before it came in.
So they beat them. They were the underdog. Nobody thought they were gonna do it, and they beat them pretty handily. They led all game. So the girls played at 3:30 and the boys are playing at 8:30.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is exciting stuff right now, so.
So I saw Thea Lepner on
Yeah,
Monday, and I said, Thea, I think you guys can do it. So,
yeah. So Leah Jones is
Yeah.
my son's
okay,
girlfriend.
yeah,
And she and Thea are pretty tight,
Yeah.
so she was at my house yesterday and I said, same exact thing. I said, you guys can do
you
it.
guys can do it.
And they did,
Uh,
so.
Congrats.
Pretty inspiring,
That's
so
awesome.
now hopefully the boys can do it at 8:30, so.
Thanks for making.
All right,
Thank you.
all right, thanks, guys.
Yep.
Enjoy your ride back to Augusta.
Thank you.
And then back home.
That's right.
Back and forth.
See you later.
Oh, that's great. So, yeah, so we'll get the info requested and then, put it on the docket for next meeting and hopefully have a decision then. Sound good?
Right.
Okay, all right. All righty. Oh, what else do we have left? So, RFP on the reval, right? You still looking at some information on that one, not ready to.
I am, I
Yeah.
think it's for the difference of $44,000, I think it's worth running down.
Yeah.
Our current assessors, agent, RJD appraisals, bid price was for $274,500. It's a year later than we asked for it to be completed, and it's not including personal property.
Right.
KRT
Yeah.
provided a number of $230,000 to perform within the time frame we asked for. And everything we asked for. The big hang up on my end is trying to understand, this software change.
Software, yeah.
They've noted in the proposal that there is a bridge that they've created to be able to export from the system into Trio, so we can still put it into our tax billing without issue. There are a couple of unique things you just gotta tweak as you're doing that, just to make sure so it all aligns right. Trio is always just kind of weird and funky. So I'm open to, any municipality is typically open to an alternative to Trio. The problem is it does work, it's just always has its bugs, and I think every software does at times. So I kind of let that go, but what's the support like when you have an issue? Can you get back in touch with them? This particular software solution is one that some towns in Maine are starting to use.
Yeah.
Cape Elizabeth is one that's implemented it, and if anyone's interested, if you go to Cape Elizabeth's assessing page. And wanted to look at what does the system look like if you're trying to look up property information, it's all right there. There's a portal you can get into and look at everyone's property information, the sketches there, the photos there.
It is just a more advanced software.
I think it is, and it has the ability with, one of the things I'm trying to track down is what is the annual cost? They did say not sure I understand the answer, but cost wise, the annual maintenance cost is about $3,200, I think is what he told me.
Yeah.
The 230 includes buying into it, but then we have, just like with Trio, you pay an annual fee. The annual fees associated with our real estate assessment, personal property assessment, commercial assessment, and the sketch tool to put the footprints on there is $9,800.
That's Trio. Yeah.
And so what I want to do is compare apples to apples on the cost, understand what that bridge, how it works, how problematic might it be for the towns that do it already. What's the end around to avoid those issues, and really understand for $40,000, that we're making the right move.
Difference and.
So I think if we can, what we talked about with the planning department, if there's ways for us to get this information up to the public to look up themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's a big win.
And this software can do that.
Yeah, so Cape Elizabeth would be a place I'd say if you're interested in seeing what it looks like, if you wanted to get a property card, if you wanted to get information on filling a permit out for what's the map and lot, what's the history here, what's it look like? Is the footprint accurate? I mean, you can't do that. I'm not aware that Trio offers that option. You can come to the office, you can call, we can download and email, you can pick it up. but you can't go online with that software we have and look it up.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to
It's worth
consider.
looking into.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
definitely.
So,
Looking into.
so you just wanna just tie up those loose ends?
Yeah, I'm not.
Because otherwise it seems fairly. I mean, KRT just seems better.
Oh, yeah.
It does
By
seem-
every metric I can.
It does
think
seem
of.
better. I mean, one of the things that.
Other than the fact that they're not the incumbent.
Right. Well, and that's another piece is like. The reality of us switching isn't just for them to do the reval, it's the assessor's agent has to be comfortable in that software too.
Right.
And so that's a piece that I've got to learn a little bit about too on their end. Are they familiar with that software? If they're our agent and they're performing service for us, then they should be, we have to realize that cost for them to train that software if they're not familiar with it. And so I just want to understand the timing of that, the cost of all that. How that works, but I would lean towards KRT as a recommendation. Just simply on the providing the services we asked for and the
Yeah.
time we asked for it
Timeline.
and $40,000 less.
Yeah, right.
I'm not eliminating the extra work that may be involved to make the back end work smoothly.
How are you
with our
gonna
tech.
determine that?
Just, they've gave us references of other towns that
Okay.
are doing this, so it's just a matter of finding out which ones use Trio. I did call Cape Elizabeth, but I haven't heard back yet.
Okay.
Bangor's on the list, I'm gonna see if they're using it. Some of the towns use Vision or Munis. And aren't using Trio tax billing as their solution, so they're not helpful in that regard, but. This company has found a way that they work with Trio towns to make that. Try to make that as seamless as possible so that you can work in that system on assessing, but then. They do offer a GIS program that I'm curious to understand if, and it comes as part of a sketch package, so if we're gonna pay for the sketching tool potentially anyways.
Yeah.
And that's all integrated with the GIS, and you look at that, you get your building footprints mapped out. And then it's overlaid on your tax parcel. It's like, well, that's kind of cool. And it's all putting that into one place. And what's that cost? So I'd like to just be able to share that with you guys.
Definitely worth looking into, make sure you're on your basis.
Snowstorm and holidays haven't helped in the last.
Right.
Yeah. Turn up the tide a little bit, so, okay. So we'll table and just depending on information and.
So it's reasonable that we should hear from most of those people in the next 2 weeks.
I would expect to. We got sun and partly cloudy skies for the next week. I think.
Yeah. On one.
Funding sources for the reval.
Funding sources.
Yeah, what do we have in the capital reserve for that?
Well, let's look.
And how much more?
Yeah, just a big,
How much more do we have?
the big book. Yeah, the big book.
I think we have about 100.
See who gets there first. eh?
No. Big bag.
With this fiscal year's contribution, we're at 135. We're proposing 30,000 without having seen these numbers. The budget book was proposing 30. They're both set up slightly different in terms of the pay, when we pay. One was equal between now and completion, 20% a year, basically. KRT was by the hour as it's completed. They would bill monthly. I think it was monthly.
But not to exceed.
Right, not to exceed the 230, but as they complete the work, they would invoice us for that. And so, and they gave us a very detailed estimated schedule. I mean, there's some big gaps in data collection, but otherwise I was pretty pleased with how their presentation was relative to the other ones. We're trying to compare and understand how much they be doing by when. They also imposed a their own fee if they don't perform at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, we didn't ask for that, but that was interesting.
So how much are we ever gonna be short if we keep budgeting the same amount the next couple of years?
So yeah, if we do 30, we need 100 grand. And so if we do 30 this coming year in FY 26, it just depends on how much they do in each of those years. We got plenty to get started. We obviously would be committing to paying the gap. But if you've got 3 fiscal years to do it, I mean, you might want to go maybe a little higher than 30 grand the first year, this coming year. But you do have enough of a balance to start. It just means in the last 2 years, the next 2 years, you gotta go more. So if you did 30 and then. Yeah, I mean, you could do 30, 35, 35.
So we'll be good. Just as long as we appropriate the right amount.
Have to
Yeah.
make sure it goes in the reserves, yeah.
Yeah, we were using some estimates on that we were provided, and we didn't think about personal property
Right.
when we got those estimates, but I think it was like about 120, 125 per developed parcel. It's not quite how it worked out when I did it backwards, based on the proposals we got, so I was a little surprised to see, quite a difference, one of them, but
A lot of towns are behind.
yeah.
So everybody's playing catch up.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
The other difference I did notice between the two is when KRT sets the value, they do all their data collection, their market analysis looks back 2 years, RJD's looks back 3 years. That was a difference in those, but that will be from basically the April 1, 2028 commitment period looking back. So who knows what that'll look like in 2 years from now. What that look back is. Barring any housing mortgage crashes or values should be.
All right.
Let's not go
So
there.
we've got a couple items there that we just, need a little bit more info on, and sounds good, Andy. Well, all right, I think we've gone, I didn't miss anything, right? We're good.
I don't think so.
So we can, does anybody have anything for discussion items tonight?
Yeah,
Tom, down
somebody, I don't want to start a fire here, but somebody mentioned about it being nice if we had lights where the crosswalks are in town, because they feel it's dangerous at night because they're not well lit at those crosswalks. So they were talking about potentially, the light poles that are on the bridge, something of that has that antique,
Which
kind of.
crosswalk specifically?
Well, the one by the the bookstore, the one
Downtown.
downtown, it's downtown. And then the one down by the.
But there's a
safety
light
bar-
pole next to the bookstore.
Not at the crosswalk. I don't think so.
I think there's a flower post and hanger.
Oh, it
Light
just
post.
hangs
Yeah,
the
yeah.
flowers.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not a
yeah.
light.
Oh, I'll have to take the flowers down. But I'm just bringing it forward because somebody brought it up.
Yeah, sure.
But I was looking into it a little bit, but you can, I didn't realize you can actually go to the internet and buy one of those things that looks exactly like the ones they have out there. And those been there for, I think, 2008 or something, they put them in.
if not before.
What, the
Yeah.
flowering thing?
And so then somebody else in the discussion said, well, what happens if a car hits it and is the town gonna pay for the repair? Do we have electricity there? Could it be solar instead? I'm just throwing it out,
Mhm.
but
Okay.
I'm gonna take a look and see if I think it's even that serious at night.
I go there and go to the movies all the time, like once a week at night, and I've never felt unsafe. But that's just me.
Yeah, I'm just gonna investigate a little more personally, not just throwing it out.
I mean, I think I've had as many complaints come in from pedestrians and drivers, for the sake of seeing pedestrians. It goes both ways. Some pedestrians don't stop and wait for the cars to stop, make sure they see them, but also it is very hard in the summertime with all the traffic out there to see someone at the crosswalks in the daytime even.
Yeah.
So I've had people recommend, would we ever consider pedestrian activated crossings?
Yeah. Flashing.
As well. And if you were going to do something, I would probably propose that over a decorative lamp. Just because it's a crosswalk, it's supposed to be made
Mhm.
visible when someone's trying to cross, and a
Yeah.
decorated lamp
Yeah.
isn't going to do the same effect that if you're talking about pedestrian safety. Some of those beacons would be more appropriate at crosswalks.
Yeah.
But the power is a
Yeah.
big question. Those
Yeah, that's exactly right, yeah.
those electrical boxes that are on the sidewalk now are maintenance nightmares now that they're at the age they're at.
And you have to put them on both sides, on Benny's side and the bookstore side.
Solar is certainly an option. We've done that with some of the other ones. So you don't need hard power. It's just a matter of
Crossing.
It's not easy. It's the issue is whether it's necessary, that's all.
Mhm.
I don't know if it is.
So let's keep the ear to
Do a
the
survey.
ground, and if it's something that, over
Yeah.
time becomes an issue.
That's it for me.
Dan.
Yeah, I just like to report, I think Andy's having too much fun. 24 hours a day driving this whacker around like.
I keep
plowing the
looking to
streets.
see, I haven't seen him yet.
But-
Every time I see one of those trucks, I'm saying, is Andy in that?
No, he's in it all the time, so.
He knows when the what plow crews are out in what towns now, at what time?
There was I saw him the other day in the John Deere and it reminded me there was a children's book called The Happy Man and His Dump Truck. And it, you know, I laughed, I said, he's got his tractor. So yeah, so as long as you're enjoying it, don't just burn out too much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like every operator is just the trade-off between, you know, being family and
Yeah.
getting other things done if you're out. you
Yeah.
know.
And to spend,
Or
to spend-
family.
to
It'd be
spend-
nice,
Family.
it'd be nice to get a position filled.
But
Yeah,
but we all appreciate. your
Definitely.
efforts there, so.
absolutely.
He may have been the guy that lifted it up and did a 360 in one of those things.
Yeah, this month has been a little bit chaotic.
The crews are earning it.
No plowing.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Andrea.
So Water Street, oh God. You know, the people that are doing that construction on Water Street, I really like them, don't get me wrong. But all those trucks going up and down Water Street for a year and a half, they're wrecking the street and eventually we're gonna have to pave it.
What about Cross Street? That thing's a,
Well, that's what I'm saying. The whole thing is,
I mean, the residential construction?
yeah, it's just residential. I don't know. I mean, I know there's nothing we can do about it, but it is an issue, I'm sure, in any time you see some kind of construction.
Well, a well-built and well-maintained road should be able to handle that kind of residential construction traffic. That road's probably not had a fresh asphalt surface on it for 10 to 15 years, I'm guessing.
Not since I've been there, and I've
Pushing
been
a
there,
little more than that.
I've been there 18 years.
So I mean, you've had multiple utility work happen through there. There's new trenches that were laid for sewer water through there. So I mean, it's at a time where it needs to just probably, I don't know if it needs to be rebuilt, but probably not far off from
Overlay.
it.
Yeah.
Certainly an overlay, but I mean, you
Yeah.
look at what's there now and it might be more beneficial just to, reclaim a certain amount of that and give it a new 4-inch surface probably. And then give it a more accurate treatment 10, 12 years down the road. It is a low volume road.
Absolutely,
Not, you
absolutely.
don't have tractor trailers going down there really. So I mean, you treat it right. I mean, you should be able to get a long time out of it. You need to remember, you need to overlay it every once in a while. But to slap an overlay on there now, I mean,
No, I'm not
buy
saying,
some time certainly. but-
I'm not saying that we need to do anything right this minute. I'm just looking at the future.
Hmm.
You know, I don't think we have any more construction coming on that street. Who knows?
Telling you.
But it's bumpy.
Slows people down.
Yes,
Oh,
yes. We go slow through there, no speeding by your driveway.
I wish.
Yeah, I mean, we're addressing part of Water Street this spring, going from
Hot part of Cross Street.
back to
yeah.
Main Street there. We haven't committed to Cross or the rest of Water. I'm assuming that might potentially be its own project there.
Yeah. Yeah, just to put on the radar.
Roads.
I know.
well, obviously.
Roads and
traffic.
Roads, all of them. Yeah.
Go back to dirt roads.
Hey.
I love, hey, there is one on my road. Down that point, it's still dirt,
Josh, you got something to say down
very
there?
much.
Well,
Uh-oh.
budget wise.
Yeah.
The 357 numbers. 357,000 is a little bit too pricey for my blood, so.
What?
The increase.
the-
Oh.
Talking about the-
It's, well,
Cost increase.
So,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say it now, that, if we could cut 125,000 off it, make me feel a lot better.
Hmm, okay.
So.
let's get rid of the police department.
But I'm just
Being through it,
saying,
oh, yeah.
if I'm just throwing that number out there, could that be a realistic goal? To cut it 125,000? Think about it when we meet next time. Look at the numbers. Are there any places in there? Can we do that throughout the whole town, each department fairly? To come up with 125,000? That's all I'm saying. I'm not asking you to do it now. I'm just saying,
But
can we do that?
But I mean, another tax increase will be really difficult for the
Yeah.
people in town.
Yeah.
It is a little
Seriously.
scary. I've seen more increases on every category than I've
Yeah.
seen before.
So,
But some,
so
some is reality, it's inflation, whatever, but
Well, part of it is,
Tough
the-
pill to.
part of it
swallow,
is the
seeing everything.
school. The school
Oh,
has hit us
is-
hard.
This
Doesn't
isn't
include
the
the
school.
school.
We
No
can
school in this.
control what we can
Yeah, this
control.
doesn't
Right,
include. the
right.
So, and then we can blame everybody else after, but at the end of the day, whatever's sitting in front of us is our fault,
Right.
you know, and then we
Right.
bring that to
Really
the
tough.
taxpayers.
Yep.
So, but I'm not comfortable with the $357,000 increase. And I've said it before, we can have all the greatest services and all the greatest people here, and that's great. But at the end of the day, people have to pay taxes, and when they tell you we can't afford this, it's not sustainable, you gotta listen, and you gotta do something about it. And we are at that point. So,
Especially after the increase that we just had this year.
yes. So let's look at, you know, I'm one person of 5, so I'm just,
I
another-
generally agree with you. I mean, you know, but I mean, I
Well, that's
look at
why
all
we-
these numbers.
I don't know where
That's
to
why
cut.
Some of them are
I
discretionary,
agree.
but they're all valuable, so.
Well, that's why this is a
Yeah.
process, right?
Yeah.
Everybody take their time and, you know, we look at everything closely and, there's some, yeah. It's an important process, so.
you know, when I know the roads, we have to plow our roads, and that contract went up, and that's a known. When hydrant rentals fees have gone up, that's
And the
another
transfer
significant
station, yeah.
transfer station, you know, those are 3 things that we have to grin and bear it, and, but what are the things that we can live within our means and try to keep it within our budget lines.
I would encourage with that in mind too, to look at, and this is why I tried to show where there's offsetting revenue.
Right.
Not by department, I did it by department, but I don't
Right.
mean like, well, that one's bringing in more than the other, so they shouldn't get as much cut, but.
Right.
Subtract out all of the offsetting revenue, look at the total taxable value increase, when you're thinking about, you know, because that's the burden, right? Trying to find ways like the business, licensing fee, that's another way, that, you know, raising
Yeah.
permit fees. You know, so there are ways that, you know, we can offset the impact, which, you know, so the increase isn't felt, you know, the same, right? You can raise the taxable value by having more taxable properties. Can't change that overnight
Right.
typically. You know, we are hopeful to pick up some more personal property, so that'll shift, you know, things a little bit down a little bit, hopefully. And then it's like, what other revenues might we be able to have? So if you just look at, instead of looking at just the operating expense increase, make sure you're also looking at what the tax increase is overall, because it may not be the same.
Well, maybe we ought to look at all of our fees. I mean, I have a dog and I pay $6. I mean, I could pay $10. I mean.
Also set by the state.
$15, whatever. Oh, it is.
An extra 25 if
So
you're
maybe
late.
we
if
ought to
you
look
wanna-
at the ones we have discretion over and see.
We keep the $25 late fee, so if you wanna,
I did that.
if you wanna hold off on doing it.
I paid
Oh,
$30.
I'm not comfortable with a $357,000 increase in our budget. And I think we can find a way. But I know there's a way.
So you're gonna look
Work.
at, we're all gonna look at it, Josh.
Yeah, and I won't be here much.
Oh, no,
Great.
Josh.
Well, they won't all be decided that day.
Yeah, no, look through them, so.
But I will,
Uh,
know what I'm thinking.
We have a
Meet next
meeting
week.
next week, though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the goal would be to get through the rest.
Jeez,
the
I hope
rest of the
so.
Budget.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just a budget meeting, so it might
It's
be a
just
long one.
budget.
Just budget.
Yep.
So,
So we won't be able to vote on the bank for 2 weeks.
Right.
right, regular meeting.
Same day.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to
I was
adjourn.
gonna have, I had something fun to say. We took the wind out
Oh.
of sails.
Go ahead.
Being beside your.
No, Josh is
Well,
right.
we
So,
gave you some
yeah,
laugh.
no, I have nothing, poignant or interesting or, you know, groundbreaking to add. So let's move this along.
I made a motion.
Motion,
Second.
second. Yeah,
matter,
all right.
doesn't
You
matter.
got your second. Andrea got the second, I think. I'll give it. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Okay, everybody signed.